Let's talk about the 18th, 21st, and 27th Amendments to the Constitution.
Why is that so important?
Well, knowing the amendments will not only help you understand how the Constitution is amended, but also what changes have been made since the men in Philadelphia wrote it in 1787.
So, how does one amend the Constitution?
We need to look at Article 5 of the Constitution, because it tells us exactly how to do this. There are two steps in the amendment process: proposing an amendment and ratifying or approving a proposed amendment. There are two different ways to propose an amendment and two ways to ratify a proposed amendment. The first method of proposal is a two-thirds vote in both houses of Congress. The second method is by a national convention called by Congress at the request of two-thirds of the states. Interestingly enough, the National Constitutional Convention method has never been used. Now, the ratification of a proposed amendment. Again, there are two ways. An amendment can either be ratified by the state legislatures of 3/4 of the states or by special state conventions in 3/4 of the states. Congress determines which ratification method the states must use, and the only time Congress chose to have an amendment ratified by special state conventions was the 21st Amendment.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
It is quite an ordeal. So, if you're ready, let's start the 18th Amendment.
Prohibition?
That is correct. But the story behind it is what's really interesting. The 18th Amendment, or Prohibition, was spearheaded by the temperance movement. Led mostly by women, they believed that ridding the United States of alcohol would bring families closer, dissolve poverty, crime, and rectify or solve immoral behavior.
Alcohol? Really? I'm surprised that people went along with this.
Well, this ideology, or noble experiment as President Herbert Hoover called it, gained huge momentum when Andrew Volstead, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, became a staunch supporter. And on December 18, 1917, Congress proposed the 18th Amendment, which, if ratified, would abolish the sale and consumption of alcohol.
So it became law.
Remember, a proposed amendment has to be ratified. It had only been proposed. The 18th Amendment became law on January 16, 1919, after it was ratified by state legislatures in 3/4 of the states.
It took 2 years to be ratified?
Yeah, I know. It wasn't exactly overnight, but it did finally become law.
Really? And then society was free from all those problems you mentioned.
Well, no. The 18th Amendment led to the organization of many large-scale crime groups. They started bootlegging, or illegally manufacturing, distributing, and selling alcohol, making huge profits for themselves. And crime, well, that went way up.
Sounds like the 18th Amendment created an even bigger problem.
In a big way. So Congress proposed another amendment on February 20th, 1933, the 21st Amendment.
What did the 21st Amendment do?
The 21st Amendment repealed the 18th Amendment. The 21st Amendment is the only amendment ever added to repeal another amendment.
So what happened to the temperance movement?
It declined in meaningful influence, but the takeaway is people can bring about change. So you have to get involved. To get involved, you have to know your rights and the Constitution. Take the 27th Amendment, which has a highly unusual history. It states, "No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened."
Not a clue what that means.
The framers of the Constitution wanted to make sure people didn't seek office just to selfishly gain money by being able to set their own salary.
If I ever got a job, I'd love to set my own salary.
Exactly. James Madison was a big proponent of making sure this couldn't happen. So he proposed that, before any congressional pay raise took place, an election for the House of Representatives had to occur beforehand. This way, if the people thought congressmen were overpaying themselves, they could vote them out of office, really giving the public oversight of the salary of members of Congress.
So this was quickly ratified by the states?
Yes and no. Congress proposed the amendment in 1789, but Congress failed to put a time limit for it to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. And this is where it gets interesting. In 1982, Gregory Watson, a student at the University of Texas, came across this long-forgotten amendment that had not been ratified by the required number of states. He made it his mission to change that and wrote letters to state legislators. And in 1992, more than 202 years after Congress proposed the 27th Amendment, it was finally ratified, mostly in part thanks to UT student Gregory Watson.
Wow, 202 years.
Yep, that's why it's important to know the Constitution. You can help bring about change.